Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and look who's back. I nabbed this beautiful man. This is my nephew Benjamin Hardy, and he is in town on a ski vacation with his 3 oldest kids. So I had to grab him for the release of this beautiful book. 10x is easier than 2x. This is your 3rd book with Dan Sullivan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, this is a galley copy because this book, we're filming this in March, and the book comes out in May of 2023. And a galley copy is basically a pre-copy that comes out for you to be able to promote it and get it in the hands of people like me, your auntie, who's your biggest fan, right below your mom and your dad. But I would say of all the books, and I have every one of your books, I think this is your best work to date.
Agreed.
Yeah. So to me, this is a book that you want to read multiple times because this is so think about somebody in your business, in your life, in your whatever it is you're trying to do. We always think, if I could just double what I'm doing, whether that's earning money or being fitter or eating cleaner or whatever it is, we always think, okay, if I work a little harder, I can double. If I double what I'm doing, my life will be so good. But the whole premise behind this is that it's actually easier to make your life 10 times better than it is 2 times better, and it's easier. And you write that out in this book. It's so brilliant. So I know this is based on Dan Sullivan, 10x is easier than 2x.
Yeah, I think that Dan, and I do want you to, as I'm talking, kind of think back as you read through the book, because obviously these are your people, and think maybe what are the 1 or 2 parts of the book you liked, or concepts, or what did it do to your thinking. But yeah, 100%. So I've loved working with Dan Sullivan. It's been a lot of fun. He's amazing. He's obviously the founder of Strategic Coach, co-founder with him and Babs. And yeah, I think so. He has a concept. He's been teaching the idea of 10x for like 25 or 30 years. He's been coaching high-level entrepreneurs for 50 years, and he has a little book that's called the 10x Mind Expander. But a chapter in that book is called 10x is easier than 2x. And one of the cool parts about our collaboration, so Dan and I wrote a book called Who Not How. And I love that idea because it fits with all of the research on transformational leadership theory. That's actually what I did my dissertation on, was transformational leadership theory. And one of the cool aspects of transformational leaders, and actually literally in chapter 6 of this book, chapter 6 is called Evolve from Micromanager to Transformational Leader. And a micromanager is an entrepreneur or a leader who is overly involved in too many touch points. And so a transformational leader is someone who has a very clear why and what. That what ideally should be a 10x vision, because you want your team to see such a big vision in your vision that they can see multiple 10x growth for themselves in it. But the thing about a transformational leader is that they give the why and the what, but they don't give the how. And so that's what Who Not How is all about, is you get the who to do the how for you. And there's a lot of research on this as well. One of my favorite motivational theories is called self-determination theory. And basically what it says is that in order for people to be very motivated, first they have to feel competence, like they have capability in what they're doing, but also they have to have an enormous sense of autonomy, that they can do things with freedom.
Without someone tapping on their shoulder, looking over their shoulder.
That's what a micromanager does, is that a micromanager overly controls the how and really doesn't trust. That's a big aspect of leadership is that these people trust you. They trust in you, and therefore they will follow you. And trust leads to commitment, and commitment basically shapes your identity. And so, but the leader has to trust them too. And so I only share all that to say, this is actually one of my favorite parts of the collaboration I've had with Dan, is that he believes in that idea of who, not how. And so he actually does not tell me which books to write. So we wrote Who Not How, The Gap and the Gain, and then this one. And I'm the one who decided those books. I said, Dan, I want to write Who Not How. What do you think? And he's like, absolutely. And then the next time, as things passed, I said, I love this concept of yours. It really fits with so many of the models I know in psychology, the gap and the gain. I want to do that. And he's like, amazing. He lets the who choose the how. And so this was very much my choice of saying, I read through so much of his material and I just loved the concept of 10x is easier than 2x. And so that was it's just, yeah.
No, I think that's perfect, and that you would describe it perfectly, and you put it into practice perfectly. Because if you look on this book, it says 10x is easier than 2x, Dan Sullivan with Dr. Benjamin Hardy. But Dan didn't write one word of this.
Not at all.
His name's on it because it was his concept, but you did not only all the writing, you did all of the research that was able to put you through to the writing. And I know Dan too. I don't know him as well as you do, but I know Dan. And he is a hands-off person. If he gives you something and he trusts you to do it, and the proof's in the pudding. It's like, if you didn't do such a good job on the first book, he wouldn't have asked you to do the second book, so to me, that is a really powerful chapter as far as let people shine.
Yeah, and that chapter actually goes through what I would consider like 4 levels of entrepreneurial growth. Stage 1 is where an entrepreneur is basically what Dan would call a rugged individualist, but this is kind of like an intro entrepreneur, solopreneur, where this is someone who's doing everything themselves, right? Like they just started the business, they're doing email, they're doing marketing, they're doing product development, they're doing everything. Like, and that's when you're first an entrepreneur, you're really doing everything.
Answering the phones and
you're doing anything and everything, and you don't know how to be a leader, you don't know how to delegate, and you have a book I've recently read, which I want you to read, it's called Immunity to Change. It's by one of my favorite psychologists. He's a Harvard psychologist named Robert Keegan. But basically one of the things, and this book is a beautiful book. I wish I had read it before I read 10X, but it fits perfectly with a lot of things I wrote in 10X. And so he basically talks about how one of the core reasons why people have a very difficult time changing is, say I want to lose weight, right? Or I have any desired commitment I want to make. I want to have a better relationship with my spouse, or I want to achieve a 10X goal, whatever it is. You can have a conscious stated commitment, but our brains and our subconscious have a lot of immunities to the changes we want to make. And so he talks about what are called hidden commitments. And from my perspective, your hidden commitments are your past self. And those are limiting beliefs, but it's also commitments, because your identity is what you're most committed to. And interestingly, in this book, we talk about 2X. 2X is basically a past orientation towards life. You're letting the past dictate what you do in the present. And so it's very linear. I'm going to continue for the most part what I'm doing. We actually use the 80-20 principle in this book, and we talk about 2X versus 10X. And if you're going to go for 2X, it's really not a monstrous change. You're kind of continuing what you're currently doing. That's why it's past-based. And you really can keep 80% of your life, 80% of your clients, 80% of your mindsets, beliefs, and habits. Like, you don't need to transform to go 2X. You just do more of what you're doing. And so you really only need to tweak like 20% of your life. Whereas to go 10X, it's such a fundamental transformation. It's not linear. It's very like exponential. And it's very future-based, very imaginative-based. And so to go 10X, you imagine a like seemingly impossible goal. And you let that future dictate who you are and what you do in the present, and it's such a high goal and such an intense filter. I think I love 10X because it's an honesty filter, and with a goal that big, and I talk about a lot of like decision making theories and things like that, and they talk about similar things, but with a goal that big, there's not as many pathways to get there. Like, it's not. That's one of the great benefits of having really big goals is that you can't keep doing most of what you're doing. Actually, 80% of what you're now doing is going to have to go, and you're going to have to focus on the few things that really have that much potential. And so it really simplifies your life. That's actually one of the great benefits of thinking 10X is it simplifies everything. It's all about less but better, higher quality and less quantity in everything you do.
No, I think that's the perfect way to do it. In fact, after I read this and we chatted, one of the biggest aha moments about this whole concept is it's not about working 10 times harder. It's actually the
That's
opposite.
2X thinking.
Yeah, and it's actually when you are able to release 80% of what your life is, and it might be like watching TV. It might be scrolling social media. But
we all have an 80% that represents our hidden commitments of our past self that is holding us back.
So really, this message is about freedom.
That's what the whole book's about.
Right, and that was kind of like, that was the big aha for me. It's like, oh, this is, but the cool thing is some people are so intimidated by thinking about their life 10 times. So to me, it's about being 10 times better and having 10 times, not just, say you're an entrepreneur, because I know you actually, in a way, kind of cater to people who are entrepreneurs.
In this case, yes. I mean, even the subtitle is How World-Class Entrepreneurs Achieve More by Doing Less. I mean, indeed. I mean, anyone would learn a lot about identity and so many things by reading this book. But yeah, this book specifically is targeted toward entrepreneurs.
But here's the thing: you don't have to be. You could be a mom. You could be.
Oh, for sure.
You could whatever you're doing in life. These concepts are so beautiful. In fact, the very first chapter talks about Michelangelo, and there's a lot of details in it that I didn't even know about Michelangelo. And
an amazing story.
Like you could close it up at that and go. Okay.
I honestly think if people just read the introduction of the book, which is it's a meaty introduction, but yeah, it goes through all of Michelangelo's story. You know, I think you would understand 10x and you could close the book. You know what I mean?
I would agree.
I mean, if you want this, you know, the how-to and the deep dive on how to like really transform your identity and how to, you know, change your time. One of the things you're saying though is so true, is that people often, you know, so this book flips everything on its head. Like, you know, people think 10x is about doing or having more. It's really about actually, doing and being. It's less but better. You know, you want to really it's about having higher quality in everything you do and less quantity. And even from a mind perspective, that's really what flow is all about. It's about quality. And so when you think about, when I'm talking about 2x is linear and it's really about doing more of what you're now doing. To go 10x, you actually have to do fundamentally less. And that's actually what Michelangelo talks about. He was telling, you know, one of the things that happened was the Pope was all asking him, what is the secret to your genius and how you do everything? You know, especially when he was talking about the beautiful David statue that Michelangelo made. And he said, I just stripped away everything that was not the David. I took away everything that's not David. And that's that 80%. It's just taking away everything that is not the 10x future. If you just take away the 80% and then just become 10 times better, it's transformational. And so how I look at it is 10x is actually more of a qualitative change than a quantitative one. By qualitative, I mean it's a transformation. Like you are not the same as you were before. You've gone through a transformation. An easy example is going from crawling to walking. Like that's a transformation. You know, crawling and walking, there's so many different freedoms, right? If you can walk. But it takes commitment to go from crawling to walking, and eventually you weed that out and it becomes part of your 80%. You're no longer crawling, right? But that's a transformation. That's a qualitative change. Going from being able to like be in a horse and buggy to driving, or from flying, like these are qualitative transformations. One of a great example I love is Steve Jobs, right? So Steve Jobs, he basically eliminated the 80% of listening to music. So, and it was a qualitative change. It wasn't just, let's find a way to make CDs 10 times less expensive, right? So back in like the 90s and early 2000s, you know, we would buy CDs and put music on CDs. And one of the problems with that model, I mean, it was an amazing upgrade from where we were before, but with that model, basically Steve Jobs really thought about it, and one of the core principles or philosophies of his was that simple is how you move mountains, but it's very difficult to get to simple. But simple is how you go 10x. And so he thought about music and he really peeled it all apart, similar to how Michelangelo pulled away the 80% of the David. And he took away all of the aspects of music that were unnecessary. Like no longer do you need to actually drive to the store and buy a CD with like 12 to 15 songs when you really only just want that one or two songs from that. You know, it's like, right. And you don't have to lug around the big bag of CDs. Instead, you can have it all in your pocket and you can buy each song you want, 99 cents. Like this is how it was back in the day. And it's just like only the songs you want. That's all you have to buy. It's all right here. You can do it digitally. You don't have to go to the store, and it's all in your pocket. So he basically simplified and eliminated the 80%, but that's a qualitative transformation, and that's a 10x, and look what it did. It opened up, it changed everything. And
changed everything for everyone.
Yeah, and so that's how you go 10x, is you eliminate the 80% and you get 10 times better in the 20% that really matters. And then you do that, and you can apply that in different ways. You know, like I'm sure you could think about your own, and everyone can think about their own 10x jumps. But
yeah, and I think honestly one of the biggest things for me, when you really talk about losing 80% of what you do during the day, and one of the things that I love that you say is don't start your day with a list of 10 things you have to do. Start with, and I've been guilty of this in the past. I definitely haven't done this for a long time. But I would actually, the more things I could write on my list, the better, no matter how small or mundane, because then I could have the satisfaction of crossing it off.
It's very 2x thinking.
It is, and when you start to go, okay,
that's about quantity, not quality.
Right.
Fundamentally,
it's like, so here's the thing. I've also, and this can be hard for some people who are kind and they think that they don't want to hurt people's feelings. I've had to release a lot of people from my life. And
100%. That's a big part of everyone's 80% if you want to go 10x. Remember, 10x is a filter.
Right.
And
but
not everything can pass through that filter.
It's so true. But here's the thing that's so cool about that. The people that are in my life, and I went through a period of loneliness, like compared to what I thought was like, because there was so many people that left my life. And then as the people that I knew I needed in my life, and the relationships were different, the conversations were better, and I felt uplifted and full of joy every single time that I had lunch with someone, dinner with this certain friend, but I weeded out everybody else. And while it might sound like, oh, that seems really mean, how can you cut people out? But I will say, and if you're this far into it, this even can include members of your family. And it's not that I don't love them or I'm not ever going to see them, because I do. I love them and I'm going to still see them, but I feel no longer obligated. So I think clearing
that's
out,
part of freedom.
Right, it is part of freedom.
Like, there's a concept I love, which is kind of like, the art or science of allowing. You allow other people to be who they are without judging them, but you also allow yourself to be your 10x future self. And so you just allow people to be who they are, but you allow yourself to be where you want to go. And that's actually a big concept in this book, is that 10x is not based on need. It's not like you need to do anything. If you feel like you need to do something, then it's kind of that's not a freedom-based concept.
No.
Honestly, if you think you need to do, freedom is based on want, and I even, as someone who's spiritual, I even view my relationship with God that way, that it's purely about want, not need. And so 10x is not something that you need, it's something that you want. And you want to do this for various purposes and for various reasons, and those are very intrinsic to you. And wanting is an intrinsic motivator. And so...
And it's not bad. It's not bad to want something.
No, if you're being really honest, and that goes back to peeling away the layers. Mm-hmm. And one obvious point is that as you go 10x, your desires will change. Think about who you were. Anyone who's listening to this, think about who you were 3, 5, 10 years ago. You wanted different things than you now want. And as you go 10x, what you want becomes of higher quality and value. And so I know that my future self, and as I go 10x again, is going to want better, more valuable things than I now want, right? And so it's okay that your values and your goals change, but this is just the idea of peeling away those layers, no longer operating based on what you think you need to do or what other people think you should do, but it's like, no, you get to the pure core of, no, this is what I truly want, and I'm willing to commit to that and be courageous and move towards that. And that's where you are actually being truly free.
Yeah, it's an amazing concept, and it's really a simple, beautiful concept. Like, I every time you put all of your research and all of your thoughts and every time you do a book, it's really life-changing, and not just for me, because I'm lucky enough I get to, every once in a while my phone rings and I'm like, oh, it's Ben. You're like driving somewhere.
We have a lot of good chats. We have a lot of great chats. We do,
and I always feel so grateful because, of course, there's pictures of you and I when, you're just a tiny little baby and a little boy, and so it's been fun to watch you, and what the impact you can have. Because here's the thing too, I think we all want to have purpose. We all are here for a purpose. This is something I say all the time. I think that if we can clear out the clutter and clear out the things that don't serve us and simplify our life, then we can literally live our purpose. And I really love that you said that your focus, and I know this about you, and I feel the same, is your spiritual connection, your connection with God is one of the most important things. And this is, I feel the same. In fact, I would say probably the last 3 years, I feel like this for me has really, really deepened. And I know that if I have any type of, not only maybe small struggle, or I feel overwhelmed with gratitude, the very first thing I want to do is I want to send up a prayer, and I want to just, I just get chills saying that, because that to me is the connection that I want.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I've had many people read this book already, very, high achievers and just regular people, and there is a sense that people get that although this book, I would say that this book fundamentally teaches three things. One is identity, and obviously 10x or 2x is a huge aspect of your identity, whether it's a future vision, which, or a past where you're stuck in those same commitments, but it's identity, time, and leadership. Learning how to operate in time very differently rather than 50 items on your to-do list. You have one where you're just going really deep. Maybe that one thing is just spending time with your daughter, right? And rather than trying to be 50 places at once or looking at your phone and honestly being distracted, it's no, I'm going to actually be in flow. That's actually a deep requirement of going 10x, and that's a big benefit of letting go of the 80%. No longer does your mind have to be on 50 things. It actually can just be on one thing at a time. Then
how beautiful does that sound?
Well, it's actually shifting from quantitative time to qualitative time, and we go through it very deep. But one thing I will say is just people do say that. I mean, this is very much a science-based and a strategy guide, and also mined from much of Dan's 50 years of working with outlier entrepreneurs, and then I bring obviously a lot of the research and kind of models as well. But when people read it, they do get that there is a deep spiritual energy and truths that are in there, and I know that that's true as well.
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. We're not physical beings here to maybe have a spiritual experience. And I think, when you know that at the deepest part of who you are, because we're part of God, that's who we are, then it makes everything, to me, it clears away all the clutter. To me, that's a simple, straight path. And the more impact and the more joy that we can all experience while we're here, no matter what's going on in the world. I've had my share of things, you watched me have a little bit of angst during the pandemic. I was just how are people?
We all go through our ups and downs, peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
You don't want your life to be a heartbeat that goes to zero. We all have peaks and valleys, and all of those things happen for us.
Yeah. And you know what? I've said this on many videos before. If you've been watching my channel, you know that. I could not be more grateful for the last 3 years. Even though there was some really, really hard stuff, the beauty that has come out of this and the deep spiritual growth that I have gotten, I wouldn't trade for anything. I would not want to go back.
Yeah.
Not for anything. So, yeah. Okay, well, here's the deal. Pick up this book. This book will change your life.
Yeah.
It's available everywhere books are. In fact, below this video, I'll put a link to everywhere it is.
Yeah, just even Amazon.
Yep.
Certainly you can go to the bookstore, but Amazon, you can get the audiobook. In the audiobook, there are an additional 3 hours of interviews between me and Dan where we go deep onto all the concepts. If you're an audiobook listener, obviously you get the physical or the Kindle.
I've listened to all your books on Audible, and the ones you do with Dan where you, in between the chapters, you guys have a chat about the chapter. It's really, really powerful because it's something that you don't get in books on Kindle or on Audible.
It's nice. It's
really, really cool. So if you guys like this video, share it with somebody who you think might benefit. I know many of you watching this are already fans of this guy. He's a pretty epic human, I must say. But thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you're not, and we will talk to you soon.
See you.
Thank you, Ben.
See you guys.